Did Grounded 2 release too soon? If you had asked me that question on July 29th, the day it released into early access, I would have confidently said no. My review video of the game was a positive recommendation. I recommend everybody play it. I had a great experience with the game pre-release. I put about 35 hours or so into the game. I was able to complete the entire main story without issue, so I had no game-breaking bugs. I had a single crash in that 30 to 35 hours that I played pre-release. I'm pretty sure that was on a logout, so I didn't lose any progress. I was able to complete the entire main story, no issues. And other than some hiccups here or there with maybe occasional frame drops or bugs spawning in the terrain or maybe like an item falling through the terrain, there was nothing just super game breaking that prevented me from having a fun experience. And that's why I recommended you playing it. Now I sit here about a week and a half after that, and I've logged another 35 or so hours. So I'm sitting at just over 72 hours playtime on the game. I've played through the game a second time on stream where I was able to get live feedback from all of you who were watching my stream saying, here's my experience, and just watching me play and interact with it. So if you ask me the same question today, do I think Grounded 2 released too soon? I'm not so confident in saying that, no, I don't think it released too soon. And that's the reason I'm making this video. I was scrolling through the comments on some of my videos today and some of the posts I put on my community page, and there were a couple that stood out to me that kind of just triggered me to make this video. And it's something that I've heard during my live streams, and it's not just these couple of comments that I picked out. There were plenty of others that kind of just said the same thing. And now looking back on it, I kind of think that I might agree with these comments. So the purpose of this video is to kind of start a conversation. After you watch it, make sure you leave a comment down below with your answer to that question. Do you think it released too soon? And the best way to doing that is by saying yes or no and giving a reason for it. Don't just say yes or no. Say, here's the reason I think it's fine as it is. Or if you don't think it is, here's the reason I don't think it is. That way I can kind of get more feedback and kind of maybe do another one of these videos in the future, or we can talk about it on one of my upcoming live streams. So with that said, make sure you like the video and consider subscribing for more content just like this. Let's get to that first comment, which is the one that triggered this is the comment that actually made me want to make this video. From Ozzy129100. I just got to speak my thoughts. I really feel like this game was released way too early. Sure, it's cool getting a good taste of the new map, but it feels like there was a bunch of empty promises that's now being planned as future content. They're pulling an EA right now by releasing the skeleton of the game and toting all the actual meat of the game as something we have to wait a year for. Even something as simple as using the peepers on your buggy. They know it's something everyone wants, but it's literally being baited in front of us on the roadmap as future content. That's not content, it's a feature that should have been available at launch. Plus the game crashes every 30 minutes to the point where I really don't think it was playtested at all before release. I know it's an alpha and they're building the game as we go, but when the first Grounded did it, it was better because it was a very unique idea getting up and running. Now we've got a sequel that seems like they removed more features than they added to give us a lackluster launch that doesn't even leave me wanting more. I really think the alpha launch round 2 was the wrong way to go about this. I might check back in a year when the game is closer to being full release, but until then, I hate to say it, but this launch really did disappoint me. So like I said, that was the comment that kind of drove me to make this video, because this is a really well thought out comment where this Ozzy clearly is really kind of passionate about this game and really putting words on paper here, so to say, as to what's wrong with the game. And I kind of don't disagree with what's being said here, which I'm going to touch upon in just a second. But let's take a look at two more comments that kind of reiterate this, but from a slightly different perspective. Second comment is from Nuka Chronic 6211, and it says, "Great video, thanks for all the great info. I'm sad to say I'm very disappointed with the current state of the game and will probably hold off playing until Tier 3 is available to be harvested. I would have much preferred that they delay it to make sure it was at least incorporating all the features from the first game. The lack of mutation hot swap and only one hotbar are bafflingly ignorant design choices for the supposed sequel, in my opinion." This is something I'm going to touch upon in just a minute, because what I did was, after reading this comment and after hearing so many other people saying there's so many things missing from the first game, in the video I did a feedback video last week where I kind of went through everything that I thought was, I guess I went through the entire game, like good, bad, and indifferent. And one thing I did was list things that were missing. Today I decided after reading this that I was going to go through and make sure I'm pretty sure I covered every single box here. So I'm going to show you all the stuff that's actually from the first game that's not in the second game that could theoretically be in there right now. And I think that this is a common sentiment I'm getting from a lot of people during my live streams is, why is this not in the game? Why can't I harvest this resource when it's in here? Why is this feature in the first game, but it's not in the second game? And I do agree that in some cases, I do question why some base features, example being the mutation hot swap and then another one being we used to have 3 hot bars, now we only have 1. Those things were in the first game, along with some other features and some building pieces and some other things that are not in Grounded 2 at launch. And it does, I kind of think it leaves a sour taste in people's mouths who had a great experience with the first game. And the third and final comment comes from Goldfish Gamer 4991, and it says, as someone who played over 160 hours in the first game, I have a few gripes with the second. My main issue so far is how everything we had access to in the first game is basically removed. How can we forget to craft mushroom bricks or specific armor? Shouldn't we still have that knowledge? It would have been cool if we go into this new area with our past knowledge in our pocket and learning the new stuff. Yet everything is once again behind having to find the specific recipe or disc for unlocking. It should have been a given, in my opinion. I'm still loving the game and cannot wait for the new updates. I wish there would be more areas with clear spots for easier base building and a lot less spiralings or mites that attack you when you're barely within an eye's reach. It gets a little annoying when you're just going around and everything is attacking you. I love the new critters, they are so cute and fun. Some are just right in the nasty factor like the roaches. The new design for the wolf spider is chef's kiss. So I can kind of agree and also disagree with this a little bit. I do find it weird that we don't have access to mushroom bricks, like we can't even analyze them and make them, or some of the older armors, like we don't just know them from the start. But at the same time, if you picked up a game and jumped into it and you had access to all these things to craft, and then other things had to be unlocked by analyzing, that would probably be a little bit strange. So I do see the design choice in not like instantly giving you access to everything, but at the same time, like not having things like the mushroom bricks in the game is kind of weird, especially considering mushrooms are in the game and all the resources needed to make them are actually in the game right now. So like I said, those are just 3 of the comments that I pulled from my YouTube comment section. Make sure you guys leave comments because I do read all of them and sometimes they might be featured in a future video. But I can also say that I was hearing the same kind of feedback from many people during my live streams, and I also heard the same kind of feedback in other people's live streams I watched. So as I mentioned, I went through Grounded 2 and I also looked at the original Grounded, and I found all of the things that are missing or cannot currently be harvested or can't be crafted right now that I think should be. Now, I want to say that I don't expect everything from the first game to be carried over. I hope that there's stuff left out, like certain bugs, and they add new bugs instead of them. Or maybe we can't craft certain things. But this is just things that, this list of things, everything needed to make them is in the game right now. So the top left is going to be missing features. There's no scabby collectibles. The coziness system's not in the game. Zip lines are not in the game. Custom mode's not in the game. The second, third, and fourth ones are coming at some point in the future. Faction activity is in the game, but it's turned off. I think a lot of you are probably happy about that anyway. I already talked about the 3 hotbar pouches. We only have 1 right now, but there was 3 before. So it's a little bit interesting to not just carry that over from the first game. We can't upgrade our canteen. There's no quick swapping mutations. So we have 4 mutation loadouts, but the only way to switch the loadouts is literally to go in the menu and swap them, which is fine if you're just going from activity A to activity B. But if you have a mutation loadout for just like fighting and you're fighting a specific bug and then you run into another bug and you want to switch to another mutation loadout, it would be easy if you just had like a quick swap button like we did in the first one. There's also no headlamp or way of lighting anything if you have a 2-handed weapon in your hand. First game had the Firefly headlamp. I don't want to say there's no way because you can use the glow sticks or the flares that you find, but realistically, those are just not that great because once you throw them down, they light up a small area and you can't move them and you can't pick them up. You can't pick them up and move them. So spamming those all over the place just doesn't seem like it would have been much more, I think it would have been much more enjoyable if we would just been able to have a headlamp or like a torch that hangs off our belt or something so that when we're carrying 2-handed weapons, we can see in the dark. Unharvestable resources. I'm pretty sure I got them all this time. The first time I didn't. Pine cones, snail shells, sour candy, donuts, lint, rust, pop caps, and burr weeds are all tier 3 resources that are currently in the game that we cannot harvest, excepting in like weird situations where apparently if you get like 4 orc weevils to blow up on a snail shell, it will blow it up. It might also work on the other ones. I haven't heard if it does or not, but we can't upgrade our Omni tool to harvest any of those resources. That's been a sticking point for a lot of people. A lot of people have commented, why are these resources in the game if I can't harvest them? Especially the ones that, all but the second one, the snail shells, all but that one were harvestable in the first game. There's also one consumable we can't craft, which is Shinobi Sneeze. That's the one that you could craft. I think it was bee pollen and grub hide. And what that did in the first game was it would just essentially make you invisible for a certain amount of time. It was like 10 or 15 seconds, 5, 10, 15 seconds, something like that. The resources for that are in the game. We can't craft it. Building pieces. There's burr weeds in the game that we can't harvest, but there's no burr floors. Mushrooms, which I just talked about. So we can't make any of the mushrooms walls, doors, pillars, or stairs. Even though there's mushrooms in the game, we can chop them. We literally can't do almost anything with them. I think one of them might be used in a cooking recipe, but other than that, you'll just be stocking them with those and they'll be sitting there. That's planned on the roadmap, which I'm going to show in just a second and talk about in just a second, but can't craft ash walls or ash doors, which all the resources for those are in the game right now. Can't craft feather roofs, feather awning, pinecone roofs, or clover awning. There's feathers in the game, can't do anything with those. And then, of course, the pine cones can't be harvested. Even though pine cones were shown, I believe, in some of the trailers or some of the footage leading up to release, the footage they put out did, I'm pretty sure, show pine cone roofs. And actually, if you look through the art book, I'm pretty sure pine cone roofs are in there, but we can't do anything with those right now. And then the awnings are just completely missing. Next up is stuffed bugs and wall mounts. So right now, we cannot make a caterpillar wall mount, a snail wall mount, and there's nothing for the stuff. There's nothing for the cockroach queen. Previous games, you could do stuff for bosses. So I'm not sure if that's not considered like a boss, but there's no stuffed cockroach queen or cockroach queen wall mount. The reason you would want those, obviously, is you can actually farm that boss. So if you wanted to farm it and have better loot luck and stuff like that, or do more damage to it, it would make sense to be able to craft those things. Lastly is going to be the furniture and production. I'm just going to blow through this really quickly. Bunk bed is, I believe bunk bed's in creative, but it's not in the game. It's not in survival. The oven is not in the game, which is like the big one that people are like, why is the oven not in the game? You need globs to make the spicy coltana and the icicles, and you only find enough globs to make one spicy coltana, one icicles, plus you get the icicles when you find it. So you can't craft extras of those if you're playing in co-op. The glue masher is not in the game. Large storage chest, plank pallet, and the large stem pallet, I think those all require pine cone. Can't make any of those. Lure trap, not that that's that useful, but you can't. It's not in the game, but you could have been theoretically been able to make it. Zipline anchor, I talked about ziplines are coming at some point in the future. I have pet house on here, but I think I kind of think that I didn't put pets in the missing features because I think buggies are the replacement for pets, but the stuff for making a pet house is in there. Fireplace and chimney, the fireplace and all the pieces for it, there's like 7 total, are in creative mode, but you can't build them in survival, even though they don't even require an oven. They're just like basic pieces. Ant candle, spider candle, pine cone table. None of the partitions, dry grass, gum, or burr can be made. Grandfather clock, acorn shelf, pine corn shelf, trash can. I know the acorn shelf and the trash can are both in creative as well. We can't place them. I think one of the partitions is as well. There's 3 pine cone dressers in the first game. They're not in here. The picture frame, which is the small picture, that's not in here. The game currently has vase A, B, and C, but does not have D, E, and F, and we can't make the hot tub. Yeah, so as you can see, there's a lot of stuff that's missing feature-wise that was in the first game that's not in the second game that's going to happen at some point in the future. There's a lot of craftables that are in the first game but not in the second game that are almost surely going to come at some point in the future. So I can understand why there's an overwhelming like sentiment of like, why is this stuff? It feels like it feels almost like the first game's foundation, like half of it was chopped off, and only like half of it was taken to the second game. And why, like I said, like I thought there was plenty of content at launch, and it took me about 20 hours to finish the last story quest. A lot of other people are blowing through it a lot faster. And you know what? You got to play the game how you want to play it. If you beeline the story and that's what you do and you finish in 5 or 6 hours, then that's your experience. I've seen other people saying they're 30 hours in and haven't even done like any of the story stuff. So to each their own, play the game how you want to play it. But I can certainly respect and understand people saying there's not enough content. I played a lot of early access games in the last couple of years. If you compare it to the original Grounded, which had literally like 30 minutes of content, this has like an insane amount more. But there's games on the other end of the spectrum that have 50, 60, 100 hours of content at early access launch. It doesn't compare to those. So it's kind of somewhere in the middle, probably towards the lower end, like slightly below average in terms of recent content for early access games. And I can understand like people are going to compare the game to its contemporaries, and a lot of people are just not happy with what's currently in the game. So with that said, with all the features that are missing, what I did was I looked at the roadmap, and then I looked at the actual map of the game. And I've done a video on the roadmap and also like on what I think the map's going to be. If you missed those, they're on the channel. But I put this little graphic together that has them side by side. And after having played through the game almost a second time all the way through, all the feedback I've received from all of you and from other people on their streams and watching other people play the game, this is kind of what I think might have made people more happy at launch. So the roadmap you're going to see here, everything that's in the fall and winter update, those things are being planned for this fall and this winter. And I think, like I said, they're going to correspond. The winter update, I think, is going to be the number 2 on the map. The boss is somewhere up in the top, like left part of the map somewhere. That's where the boss is going to be. That's going to be the tarantula. But if they would have incorporated everything from that fall and winter update in the launch release of the game, it would have probably squelched like 95% of the criticisms that I've heard levied upon the game right now. On that list, you're going to see that it has coziness. It has mushroom stuff, which means the ovens are going to be in the game. It's got a new boss. It's got more parts of the map. It's got an extra buggy. It's got the peeper, specifically the peeping on the buggy. Somebody mentioned that in one of those comments that I showed. It's got some more new bugs. It's got the tier 3 upgrades for the Omni tool, which will allow you to harvest all those resources that I listed before that are not harvestable, will be harvestable. So if that part of the game, if those first 2 chunks were at launch, and number 2 on the map on the right side was at launch, that would have gave us roughly half the map at launch, with probably, I don't know, 35, 40% of the story and the content in the game at launch. And I think it would have made a lot more people happy. Now, the one thing I would pull out of there, personally, what I would have said was, if you launch with that, pull Playgrounds out and have Playgrounds be the bridge between the launch and the first big update. Because what's going to happen is, with the current update schedule as we see it, and we're already seeing it in the player trends and some other trends that I'm going to talk about when I wrap this, right before I wrap the video up, a lot of people are dropping off the game really quickly, and they're not going to come back. People might come back for a day to play the boss. They might not. More people might come back for the winter update because it's going to have it's going to have a big chunk of the map, and it's going to have more story, and it's going to have a new buggy and all this kind of stuff, new creatures, and you're going to be able to harvest all these things you couldn't harvest. So more people might come back for that. But then what's going to happen is there's a huge gap there between winter and summer. There's no spring update planned, so even more people are going to leave. So me personally, if I was laying this roadmap out, looking back now what I know, and like I said, I had a positive experience, I'm not complaining. But in hindsight's 2020. So in hindsight, if I was looking at this and saying, what should we launch? I do think it would have probably been better overall for the game, which, by the way, currently sits at 78% on Steam, and the first game's at a 90. It's sitting at 4 out of 5 on Xbox when I checked. So, and I think the first one's higher than that. And that's coming up. Like, the Steam score was in the 60s on launch day because of all the performance issues people are having. So it has come up, which is great. And I think in the end, it'll probably end up being in the high 80s or close to the first game. But if they would have waited another 6 months, which it looks like it's going to take them to get to this winter update. So if they would have just waited until early 2026 to launch the game, and it would have had the tarantula boss, it would have had the whole top right part of the map, it would have had all these features, minus Playgrounds, I think that would have been great. They could have launched this game early 2026. Then they could have a month later said, we're giving you Playgrounds as a bridge to the next big update. So that could have been like the spring update is the Playgrounds mode. That would give people content. They could create their own content, mess around with stuff, keep people busy, keep people engaged in the game. User-generated content is like the thing for keeping people engaged in games nowadays. It's why Fortnite's so popular. It's why Roblox is so popular. It's why people still play Minecraft. Any game where you can create your own content and then other people can play your content, that's what keeps games alive. Playground mode is going to be that mode for this game, it seems like. So if they've revamped Playgrounds and it's going to be even better than the first time around, and they're dropping it during early access where more people will engage with it, that would have been the perfect bridge, in my opinion, between the launch content and that first update, which I'm saying will be update 1, which would be the summer update. So then after that, they could have just dropped the summer update next year, which would have had the number 3 on the map, which is the water biome, all the water stuff. They're going to add zip lines then. Personally, I don't even care about the zip lines now because it looks like they're adding we've already gotten fast travel between the ranger outposts. So if we can fast travel between the ranger outposts, I don't even care about zip lines, to be completely honest. But all the water stuff, a lot of the water stuff I didn't even put on the list. That was in the first game. Like, there's water bases, water creatures and stuff in the first game. But since we don't have any of the parts for them, I didn't put them in here. That could have been that update. And then 4 and 5 could have came later on. And I think what that would have done was made a lot more people happy. And I think it would have kept a lot more people engaged with the game. So before I close out the video and kind of give my final thoughts on it, it wouldn't be one of my videos where I kind of showed data and stuff all like that if I didn't show a Steam chart. So here's a quick Steam chart I wanted to show you. This is showing the original Grounded and Grounded 2 over since the launch of Grounded 2, which was July 29th. And there's a couple of interesting things to pull away from this. Number one is Grounded 2 had a much higher peak player count than the original. And the peak player count you're seeing on here, the 32,000, was during a free weekend. The actual peak player count during a non-free weekend was only like 27,000. So Grounded 2 had nearly double the number of players peak that the original game did. The other key thing here that I look at is how quickly the lines are converging. Looking at the last couple of days, the game, Grounded 2, is literally losing almost 3,000 players a day. It's like 2,850 players on average a day for the last couple of days. At that rate, it's going to, if it keeps dropping at that rate, it's going to end up having less players than the original game within the next week or so, maybe sooner. I'm expecting the weekend to probably have like a little bit of a bump, hopefully, bring some people back over the weekend, but realistically, they might end up having about the same player count, which is just really interesting considering it's a new game versus a game that's been out for several years. The last point I wanted to make was, if you look at the drop in peak player counts, which is 49,836, to the 24-hour peak, which is 23,095, it's about a 54% drop. And I can tell you that my YouTube statistics correlate nearly 1-for-1 with that. My peak views in a day recently, and my views today or yesterday as I'm recording this, also are down 54%. So what that tells me is more than half the people that played this game or were interested in it have already started losing interest in it just about a week and a half after it came out. So that's normal. It's normal for early access games to peak early and then have it fall off, and then people sometimes come back for updates, but most of the time they don't come back for 1.0. But when you lose a lot many players that fast, what that means is you're going to have far less people reporting bugs, testing out your new features, providing you with feedback, providing you with like critical feedback, and not just saying I love everything, but actually giving constructive feedback and saying here's how the game can be better. You're going to have a smaller and smaller number of people being able to do that in the long run. So that's the whole point of early access. At least that's what everybody always says it is. I personally think that a lot of times early access is done because a studio needs money. In this case, Obsidian is owned by Xbox and Microsoft, so that shouldn't be an issue. But when you want your community engaged with you, you got to kind of keep them around. So I guess to wrap it up, if you asked me right now and said you have to answer this question, did Grounded 2 release too soon? Looking at all the data I just showed you, looking at all the feedback you guys have given me from my own experience after 1.0, after the early access release, and from watching a couple of friends stream it and play it and listening to their chats as well, I think that the game probably would have been better had they waited another 6 months to release it. One thing I don't think I really talked about up to this point was all the performance issues which were causing a lot of the problems. The game actually is at a 78% positive reviews on Steam. The first game was at 90%. That number was actually way lower on launch day. It was like in the 60s. I was kind of shocked. It was mixed, and it slowly creeped up. I personally haven't had a ton of performance issues. I didn't have any. I only had one crash before release, and I didn't have nearly as much technical issues as a lot of other people have had. For whatever reason, with that day one patch and then the couple of after it, my performances actually seem to have gotten worse. I haven't crashed as much, but my FPS seems to be lower than it was before. So I don't know what's going on there. But an extra 6 months would have allowed to not only polish up the optimization, make sure multiplayer works because the game's driven around co-op, but it would also given them time to add more content to the game, which would have hopefully kept more people around longer to provide more feedback. So while I do enjoy the game right now, and if you said, do you recommend playing it? I would still say if you like the first game and if you like survival games, there's a good foundation there, and I know in the long run it's going to end up being a great game. So yeah, you can play it right now if you're looking for something to play. But do I think it would have been better off if it would have waited another 6 months or maybe a year before it released? Absolutely. You can probably say that about a lot of games, but in this case, I'm sure it would have ran better and would have had more content, and more of you would have been happy with it. So anyway, what I want to know, what the whole part of this video was to kind of get your feedback on this as well. So please let me know in the comments down below your answer to that question. Do you think Grounded 2 released too soon? Yes or no, and why? If you found the video interesting, if you found it insightful, make sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.